GAIN is G-A-I-N, and it stands for G as in goal, A is in awareness. We have I as in insight, and N as in next step forward. Okay, so I'm going to go through each of those parts of the GAIN framework so you can understand them. But the GAIN framework actually gives structure, flow, and confidence so that every call builds that connection, that awareness, and easy next step. Okay. So you can't rely on scripts. Scripts sound robotic. So if you call me up and you say, "Hey, Allie, can you give me a script for that?" I will tell you your scripts will sound robotic and they oftentimes sound salesy. So frameworks create some kind of flow. So instead of having a script, you have a framework that you can go by. So the GAIN became the foundation for every conversation in my business from new leads to partner calls. So this GAIN framework, I didn't just use for my prospective clients, but I used it for my prospective partners. This is going to help you double your business even further than just with the clients that are calling in, right? This or calling in or doing your online consultation. If you don't know how to do that, please get with me. But your partners, your real estate agents, your loan officers, like what are their goals? Right. And so that you can structure how you do your business to help make sure that you're reaching the goals for those individuals as well. So this GAIN method works for both sides of the spectrum here. Okay. It helps your clients see themselves succeeding before you ever make an offer. Isn't that powerful? So if you think about, my client who wanted to buy a home for his daughter, and it was a status thing. So it was a goal. He wanted to do it for his daughter, but it was a status thing because he was feeling like he wasn't a good father. He wasn't a good husband, and he just felt crappy about himself altogether. So again, a lot of times when people buy something, they're buying status, a goal and status, or hand in hand. So he wanted that status too of having that home. It showed that he was a successful man, if you will. Okay. And so when I'm talking to him, I'm bringing that out and I'm validating his feelings and I'm helping him see how it can be a reality. Okay. And that's part of that GAIN framework. Okay. So we're going to go for the first letter in GAIN, which is G, and that's for goal. Start with vision, not problems. So a lot of times, and I know because I've done it and I am sure you have too, the first thing in your consultation process is you want that credit report. And why do you want that credit report? Because you want to see all the problems on that credit report so you can make sure you let them know all the problems they have and then the solution that you have for those problems. Okay, that's great. You should know that. And I certainly do ask for that credit report during my consultation. So when I'm doing my online consultations, I will review that credit report, but that's not where I start with. When I first start on my online consultation, I'm starting with their goal. I'm validating their goal. I'm helping them actually visualize themselves reaching that goal. That's the first part of the GAIN framework is the G, the goal. So really focusing on the goal. So start the conversation with their dream. The moment you identify their goal, you shift the energy from fear to hope. And you actually, this is so important. You really start to help them visualize the goal. I talk about John Doe who, wants to buy a house for his daughter. And I say, hey, I just can't wait until the end of this journey. And you're walking into your new home and you open the door to the little girl's bedroom. And you say, what color do you want to paint your room? Do you think he had that vision in his head? Maybe. Maybe he did, but most likely he didn't. And I gave him some more oomph for his goal, right? Some more energy, some more emotion where he could literally see himself as I'm describing it, holding his daughter in his hands and walking her through the hallway into this bedroom, swinging the door open and saying, what color? Do you imagine that he probably did that when he bought his home? He did buy his home. I imagine he did. I imagine he did that because I set that vision in his thoughts and mind and heart throughout the entire process that I worked with him. And that is the first part of the framework, is the goal. Really, 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 really establishing that clear goal and the big why and helping them visualize succeeding through the process and getting to that goal, right? So that's the first part. Ask, what do you want your credit or finance to do for you over the next 6 months? So maybe that's a question. Or they come to you and they say 700 score. Why 700 score? Why? A lot of why questions will help you get to the meat of what you need to know in order to help them best, but also help to have that emotional connection with them. Okay. When they answer with emotion, you can then connect that emotion, right? And so when he told me that he felt like a slum husband and father and man, I was able to connect with him and say, you know what? I feel you. I feel you. A lot of people go through that. I know as a single mom, I felt like that. Like, how do I give more to my kids because I wanted to be a good mom, right? So you can also emotionally connect with them when they are able to emotionally express their wants and needs and desires. Okay. And then you can anchor everything on the outcome in that conversation. So that first conversation is G, goal. All you care about is defining the goal, getting clear on it, helping visualize it, giving them hope that they can actually go through the process and achieve the goal. Next is A, and that's awareness. Awareness is to help them see the gap. So we want to help them become aware of what's been keeping them stuck, not in a shame-based way, not in a judgmental way, but with clarity. So we might say something like, hey, John Doe, you're wanting to get to this goal of buying a home. And, we got this credit report score 600. We need to get it to XYZ, right? Got a few things that we need to look at and consider. We might need to do some rebuilding of credit, but the fact is that we're not quite there. There are some things we need to do to get you to your goal, right? And so this is just where you're not judging, you're just letting them know that there is a gap. And do they already know there's a gap? Yes, they already know there's a gap. So we're not like throwing up on them and telling them all the bad things that are on their credit report, right? That is not the time to do that. We're just expressing that there are some things missing in that perfect pie to get them to their goal, right? And so this is a very delicate spot, right? So you've already pumped them up on their goal. You've helped them see that they could reach their goal. And then if you throw up on them of all the errors on their credit report and all the issues that they have, then it's almost like telling them, I said all this stuff about your goal and I helped build this goal up, but really you're so far away. You absolutely need me so bad. I'm going to be your hero because without me, you'll never get there. And that's not the way that you want to leave people feeling. You want to leave them feeling empowered and saying, yeah, I have a gap, but it's doable. I can do this, right? But they do need to know that they have a gap. Let's see. So where am I at? So you might ask them, what do you think has stopped you from reaching your goal so far? That's a great question. Instead of you telling them, maybe you start to ask them questions. Like, what do you think might be keeping you stuck? And these have been some of the greatest questions I've ever asked a person because they'll tell me, you know what? I have a hard time budgeting. And so I have the money. It's always there. I just forget to pay the bill. Or I go out shopping and then realize, oh, shoot, I was supposed to pay that bill because I didn't realize that the bill was due. So we have situations like that. I've had how many clients tell me I make a lot of money. I just don't know what to do with my money. Right. And so then you have that additional insight of what's the root cause of the problem. Right. And so asking questions is better than telling them all the errors in their credit report. And this is where your credibility shines. You don't tell them what's wrong, you help them discover it, right? Instead of saying, hey, you have 100 late on this credit card. You might say, hey, I'm reviewing your credit report and I see there's been some issues with payments on time. Can you tell me more about that? Right? And it's more of a discovery. So they start to open up and tell you, especially if you ask that question, what do you think's been stopping you? They'll tell you, you know what? Well, my daughter went to the hospital and I have all these medical bills and I just didn't know what to do. So I just buried my head in the sand and just pretend like they weren't even there. And now I'm having to deal with it today. Right? So you can uncover a lot more that way. And this builds instant trust. Okay. When they say, I've never looked at it that way, you've won. So in that conversation, when we're looking at the gap, we're helping them discover what the gap is. We're not just throwing up on them, but we want them to be able to say at the end, hey, I never looked at it that way. Does that make sense? So thinking about, let's think of an example on that. So let's say a person they have 30-day lates on their credit card, right? And you say, hey, I discovered by looking at your credit report, there's some late payments. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Oh, you know what? I forget to pay my bill all the time. It's not that I don't have money, I just forget. And you might say, okay, that makes sense. I understand that. People are busy all the time. What do you think would happen if maybe you set these on auto pay? Oh man, I never thought about looking at it that way, right? That solved the problem, right? So consider thinking about how can you get people to say, I've never looked at it that way. Okay. Next letter in the G.A.I.N. So we got the G, goal, the A, awareness, and we're at I, insight. And this is a really fun one. So you're going to educate and empower in this step. This is where you give value and it's a teaching moment. Okay. Share something that they didn't know about the process, like how scoring models work. You might talk about how DTI affects their approval for a home loan if that's their goal, how payment history shapes their future. So you're going to talk a little bit about that, but I want you to give real value. So don't be that gatekeeper on your information and say, oh, you have to pay me to get this. Give it to them. Give them the sauce that's going to help them. So, I've had clients come to me, credit looks pretty good. There is a gap from where they want to be. And I might just say, hey, you know what? There's a lot of things we can do. But if you want to do one thing to get you to the other side, the one thing is to pay this credit card down, And so we're going to give them true insight. And this is what I want you to pay it down to. And now that opens up, is that possible? And they might say, oh, right now it's not possible. Okay, we can work on coming up with a framework for that or a process to make that happen faster rather than slower. So then you know a little bit more about what you're going to be delivering to them, right? When you teach something useful, you create this moment. And people buy from people who educate them. People buy from guides. Guides get paid. Okay, people buy from guides. This gives you a chance for you to shine and show your credibility, show that you know what you're talking about. Certainly, you're not making it sound like you're the hero in this. That's not the point. But the point is to show them, hey, you know what? I'm looking over your situation and I see we got these late payments and we've already discovered you have the money to pay it. It's just that you didn't have auto pay. So let's start there. That's going to help this trend and it's going to improve your credit over time. We're going to get further and further away from these lates, right? But then I do want to ask you another question. Do you know if you're 1 day late or 2 day late on the credit card? Because what I do know is most credit card companies will remove a late if it's 31 or 32 days late. And then like, oh man, it's always like 1 day late. It's like the next day I get a notification that I'm late and I go and pay it, right? And that's where you're getting that credibility. Does that make sense? So insight and then delivering an educational, empowering moment for them. The next letter and the final letter in the GAIN framework is in, and it's referred to as the next step. This is the invite, not the pushing them into buying your services, but an invite. So you might invite them to the next step, and it's kind of a natural thing that happens in the flow of the framework, right? So you went to insights, and so let's say I presented, hey, are you 1 day late, 2 days late? Oh, you know what? I'm always like 1 day or 2 days late because as soon as I get that notice, I pay it. Okay, that's where I can be a really big help for you because I understand how we can talk to this creditor to possibly get that taken care of, right? So if it makes sense for you, and a lot of my clients come to me for this exact same reason, I would love to guide you through this journey so we can get you to your home loan. I can create the plan for you. I can be your accountability partner. So I'd like to invite you to that if it makes sense for you, right? So you're inviting them in, and it usually is a natural progression because it went from the inside, just like I just gave you that example of the credit card, right? Student loans are a big one, right? So you can, if they have student loan problems, say, hey, you know what? I'm seeing this often. People are getting hit with a 90-day late, 120. But realistically, you can't have a 90-day late if you didn't have a 30 and a 60. Oh, really? I didn't think about it that way. How can they tell me I'm 90 days late if I wasn't 30 or 60? Yeah, you're right. They can't do that. So that's something I can help you with. So I would like to invite you, if it makes sense for you, that we work on that together, right? And so that's an invitation. So I like to say, if it makes sense, like a lot of my clients, it's made sense that they walk through this journey with me, right? I'd love to walk you through my step-by-step plan to help you get from where you are now to your goal of buying a home. This is my specialty. This is what I've been doing for the last 23 years, and I'd love to help you get there. How does that sound? Then I say, yeah, we're going to do all this stuff for you. And I charge $139 a month. And right now, if you get started right now, it's $150, blah, 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 blah. Right. And you're just telling them right now, but this is a limited time offer. You better get it today. It's a limited time offer. My fees go up tomorrow. This is like on this consultation call kind of thing, right? And then you're just seeming like pushy and salesy. Right? You will get some people. Salespeople, they're good at being pushy and salesy and getting people. They're also good at having a lot of people have buyer's remorse. They're also good at people not staying with them for the long term because they forget the person in the whole process. They're also really good about getting charge-offs, right? So think about the person first in this process. And that's what the GAIN framework is. So G is for goal, A is for awareness. So let's go back to goal. Goal is like, hey, what's the big why? And how can I help you get to where you are now and where you want to go? And A is that awareness. What's causing us not to be there already? What's that gap between where we are now and the goal that we want to have? I is insight. What are the things that we can do? What are the things we can really do? How can I educate you so we can get there together? Right. And then N is that invite to the next step forward. The invite. So, next step, if it makes sense, right? And then they always feel in control. They don't feel pushed. People like to feel in control. I bet you do too. I know I do. I like to have a lot of control, right? But people do. In general, we like to have control. And we don't want to feel like we lost control because someone pushed us and saying that we have to have this and they're our hero. Okay. All right. So, key takeaway: a script sells a service, a framework builds a relationship, right? So, think about that for a second. If I had this script, the script for the G, the script for the A, the script for the I, the script for the N, it wouldn't come off authentic. And it certainly wouldn't be a process that helps me build a solid communication between the two of us, right? Or if I'm doing my online consultations, because of my online consultations, I'm not talking to you. You're filling out a questionnaire for me, a very short questionnaire, and I'm using that and still using that GAIN framework to build off of, but we're not having a back and forth conversation. A little bit trickier in that situation, but it's very, very doable in the same respect because it's keeping the person forefront, their goal in mind, helping them visualize it and giving them some more information. Sometimes when someone fills out my questionnaire, they don't give me a lot of information. So I might email back and say, hey, got your questionnaire. So excited to do your online consultation, but I just have a couple more questions real fast to make sure that I am the right person for you. And then I'll kind of see if I can get them to open up and give me some more information. Okay, so keep that in mind. A little bit more challenging when you're doing online consultations, but once you get that GAIN method down, it becomes very quick and easy, and you can do that without the back and forth from the consumer. So those consultations, when I do online consultations, we're talking 5 to 7 minutes in length. So I'm not on a phone call taking 30 to 45 minutes. My calendar is not filled up with consultations. Most of my clients don't even talk to me. It's because we can do this process on an online consultation process in 5 to 7 minutes, still give them the GAIN framework, and it works very effective. Okay. All right. So I did want to give you an action tip for this. I would challenge you, if it makes sense, for you to consider this. If you've been struggling with doubling your business and you're thinking, hey, I'm going to lower my price to get more people in, please don't do that. If it makes sense, I'd like to challenge you to just start using this GAIN. Maybe just do it on the next 3 consultations, or maybe it's just one because you're scared. You're like, I don't know. I know. This has been working pretty well for me. I don't want to switch it up and change it and mess it up. But I would encourage you, I should say, to consider taking me up on that offer to try this GAIN method. And if you would like more details on the GAIN method, if you'd like me to build you out a process for the GAIN method, if you want to drop a DM or DM me or drop a comment in and with the word GAIN, I'll send you my GAIN method in a little bit more detail that might help you as you're making these consultation calls or video consultations if you do it like me. Okay. All right. And quick thing, if you do it, kind of take notes on how that went. What was the response back? If you're doing it as an online consultation, maybe you look at and see, is my conversion rate higher now that I started doing this? And you might find that it is. I get a lot of emails back when people take my class on mastering online consultations and they take that class and they start doing it and they email me. I get an email and they say, oh my goodness, my conversion rate is doubled or my conversion rate is almost 100% now. Right? Because again, these are I've been using them for a long time, 23 years, and I have a lot of other people that I've taught this, so they work. But you got to get used to that process because it's not necessarily natural in sales. That's not what we're getting taught, right? So I encourage you to try that.